Hello and welcome back to Swedish Tales of Horror and Drama. Today we will tell the exciting and almost unimaginable story of the Swedish army's attack on Denmark from the south and the army's march across the ice-covered broad straits in the southwest of Denmark. This is probably one of the most daring military operations ever. Don't forget to click like and subscribe for more tales of horror and drama. Sweden participated in the 30 Years' War in Europe during the first half of the 17th century. In the beginning, the Swedish troops out in Europe were led by King Gustavus Adolphus the Great. In the end, there was peace, and it was signed in Westphalia in 1648. Sweden's achievements in the war meant that Sweden was suddenly a European great power, with lands that today are Estonia, Latvia, Pomerania and parts of Denmark. Finland was already an integrated part of Sweden since the 14th century. Swedish politics strove for a comprehensive Baltic Sea empire in order to control the extensive trade in the area. One problem was, of course, that Denmark controlled current Swedish areas such as Scania and Blekinge and thereby controlled Öresund, the strait between today's Sweden and Denmark. In the pictures here we can see King Gustavus Adolphus the Great and on the map what Sweden looked like in the middle of the 17th century. Areas that are green, purple, pink, blue and yellow existed before the war against Denmark. The orange areas were added after 1658 as a consequence of the events described in this video. Carl Gustaf became King of Sweden in 1654, and his goal was to consolidate the newly founded Swedish great power, both internally and externally. In the fall of 1657, Russia attacked Poland. Carl Gustaf then saw an opportunity to, when Poland was weakened, attack Poland with the goal of fully joining Poland to the Swedish Empire. The war was successful for Sweden and Carl Gustaf was proclaimed king in Poland. However, a popular uprising meant that success was exchanged for retreat. When the Swedish army was busy in Poland, Denmark took the opportunity to attack Sweden. The Danish army went south and occupied the Swedish Bremen. Carl Gustaf then turned the entire Swedish army north and went to meet the Danes. The Swedes were much more used to warfare than the Danes, and the Danes were soon on the retreat up towards Jutland. They entrenched themselves in the Fredriksudde fortress. The fortress was stormed and all of Jutland was then occupied by Sweden. The Danish army was also hard pressed in what is today the Swedish Scania and Bohus county. The Danish army was led by General Ulrik Christian Gyldenlöve, who was the half-brother of the Danish king, Fredrik III. Compared to King Carl Gustaf, Gyldenlöve was very young and inexperienced, only 28 years old. The main Danish island of Zealand was, however, protected by wide straits and the Danish fleet. The winter of 1657 to 1658 was very severe, with low temperatures. The sea with the Little Strait and Great Strait froze. Carl Gustaf worked out an incredibly bold plan together with General Dahlberg, his advisor. It was planned to march with the entire Swedish army across the ice and attack Danish Zealand and capture Copenhagen. Those who were informed of the plan could not believe their ears. You can't do that, can you? It's impossible with cannons, horses, wagons, etc. The army will go through the ice and drown. The Danes felt safe on the other side of the straits. No one believed for a moment that the Swedes would be able to cross the ice, and when the ice melted in spring, there was the Danish fleet dominating the straits. The map shows which route the Swedes took across the straits. Small patrols were sent out to reconnoiter the passing over the sea, and on the morning of January 30, the Swedish army was set up on the ice in Little Strait, approximately 10,000 men, 2,000 horses, cannons and wagons. The ice held, and they marched off in the direction of Iversnäs on Funen, the second largest Danish island. On the Danish side, people couldn't believe their eyes. Is the Swedish king crazy? They started ringing all the church bells on Funen and sent messengers in the direction of Copenhagen with reports of the Swedes' activities. At Iversnäs, a battle broke out between Danish and Swedish forces. The Swedes had a disadvantage of attacking from the ice up towards land. The ice was also very weak. 2 Swedish cavalry squadrons went through and disappeared into the depths, about 400 men and as many horses. Even the sleigh in which King Carl Gustaf was traveling sank through the ice with 3 horses. However, the king jumped out of the sleigh in the last second and mounted a horse to lead the charge. The Swedes attacked aggressively under the battle cry, "Help, Jesus!" After fierce fighting, the Danes fled east and the Swedish army followed. The plan was to cross the Great Strait by first marching to Langeland and then via Lolland to Zealand. Several straits with streaming water under the ice had to be passed, the widest being 13 kilometers across the Great Strait, and that is 8 miles. On the night of February the 6th, 1658, the Swedish army began the dangerous march. The riders walked holding the horses in the halter. The ice had started to melt and the soldiers waded in high water on top of the ice. The army succeeded against all odds to get over to the other side of the straits. On February 11, the Swedish army had reached Zealand and the Danes were more or less panicked. It was now only a few days' march before the Swedes will be outside Copenhagen. Danish King Frederick III sent out peace negotiators to meet King Carl Gustaf. Before reaching Copenhagen, the peace treaty at Roskilde was concluded, with very large concessions for Denmark. Sweden took over Scania, Blekinge, Bohus, Halland, Bornholm and Trondheim counties from Denmark. During a continuation war in the fall of 1658, General Gyldenlöve was killed by the Swedes during the attack on Copenhagen. King Carl Gustaf died 2 years later of pneumonia. Bornholm and Trondheim's counties were also returned to Denmark in 1660. Denmark then tried through several attacks on Sweden for another about 100 years to regain the provinces of Scania, Blekinge and Halland from Sweden, but never succeeded. The march of an entire army across the Great Straits on melting ice is surely one of the most daring military campaigns ever. Nowadays, caused by the climate change, the straits are never covered in ice in the same way as in the 17th century. Looking out across the straits in winter today, the march across the ice is as unthinkable as if someone were to try to attack England by walking on the ice across the English Channel.